Welcome to Startup Hacks, a We Global podcast. We explore the stories and secret strategies that women entrepreneurs use to save time and money when bootstrapping and building their businesses. I'm your host, Fernando Carapina. Welcome back to another episode of Startup Hacks. I'm your host, Fernando Carapina, and today I'm very excited to welcome Willow Hill. Willow is an award-winning Chief Creative Officer and the co-founder of Scoutlab, a creative agency building the purpose-driven brands of tomorrow. Prior to building Scoutlab, Will was an early member of the Airbnb global brand team and is now an advisor to companies that focus on building climate crisis solutions. Welcome, Willow.
Hi, Fernando. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm so excited to have you and to share you with our listeners because I think your story is such a unique one and such an inspiring one. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you if you can share with us a little bit about your background and how you grew up and how you got started in your professional career.
Yeah, absolutely. I will agree. It's maybe not the most common path to becoming an entrepreneur. I actually was raised from an early age with kind of a sense of grit and responsibility. My mom was 16 when she had me, and I grew up watching her really put herself through college when I was in elementary school. She kind of modeled for my sister and I what it meant to have big dreams but not make excuses based on where you come from or what kind of resources you have. So I feel like that really set me up for what was to come later in life. I started working at the age of 15, a little bit of the usual, so restaurants, retail, and then worked my way through college. So I was fortunate to get a scholarship, which was great, but it didn't cover all of my bills. So I worked multiple jobs trying to make sure that I really was able to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve. So that was a little bit of my kind of early life and career. I think you see a lot of entrepreneurs that take a similar path, whether it's getting an MBA or having, kind of a perfect track record on things. And so I love to encourage people to know that you can come from really any background or any walk of life and have any kind of start to life and still be able to pursue your dreams.
100%. Beautifully said. Very true. All right, so you're missing some of the fun stories that you shared with me that I really think are so fabulous that people need to hear them, because I think that oftentimes, especially kids who are in college, don't necessarily feel like there is an opportunity for them to kind of step into the spotlight when they are either actively involved in a company as an intern or just passively involved in an activity that involves a corporation that can put you in the spotlight. And I was so impressed by your story that you shared with me, and I believe it was regarding, I don't want to make a mistake, so I'll let you share the story. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do. So when I was in college, I had visited a Red Bull event. If some of you guys are familiar with it, it's an energy drink, but went to one of their events and kind of noticed that it was a really incredible event, but not a lot of people there. And so I decided I would reach out and see if there was an opportunity for me to kind of create a role where I was a little bit of a liaison. So getting people to their events, that's a little bit of how it started. I wasn't really sure necessarily whether they were going to say yes or no, or completely be offended that I even brought up, the poor outcome. But that parlayed into me working there for about 4 years and really getting the opportunity to manage things that I never would have been able to manage. So I was doing, marketing and events. I helped launch Red Bull magazine and for Red Bull Media House in the city that I was in. So that was really incredible. And I think to your point, Fernando, a lot of people don't necessarily look at a problem and think, hey, how can I solve this? Or how can I come to a company with a solution rather than asking for a job? It's actually a great piece of advice I got from a friend when I was starting out early in my career. I didn't realize I had been maybe doing it a little bit the whole time, but he said, I think I asked him, hey, what is something I need to know about interviewing? Something that you would, like a recommendation that you would give not to forget. And he said, his name is Brian. Brian said, never forget that you are there to offer an outcome, and they want you to come with solutions rather than asking, like, needing a job. I think it's just a really good way to reframe the way you think about everything, no matter what the job is, right? Whether it's being a barista or working in retail, if you're early on in college, there's always opportunities for you to fill gaps if you see them.
I think that's actually a great piece of advice. And when you look at it on the, kind of a face value, it seems so obvious. But oftentimes when you do go into those interviews, you are really kind of hat in hand, and aren't really thinking about the fact that you bring value to the table. And you not only do you need to present it in marketing yourself, but be actively involved in showing them how you bring and how you can solve a current problem.
Yeah, exactly. And in this case, I was at the time I was using MySpace, which, if anyone remembers MySpace, it's kind of laughable now, because at the time Red Bull actually didn't have any social media channels. But I was running events probably against the better will of a lot of people at corporate, but it was working. And I think, as we start to see any type of emerging technology, or if you start to see any emerging trends, bringing those to your employer and saying, hey, I think there's opportunity here. It's happening all the time around us, and there's always a chance to be able to do that at any time.
Absolutely. So then tell us about Airbnb. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I started work at Airbnb in 2012 when I was actually working for my previous boss and mentor, Scott Bedbury. And Scott actually worked on building Nike Just Do It. He took Starbucks from being this little corner coffee shop to what it is today. And I had the pleasure of being able to work under him and learn what he knew about brands. That was a little bit of a funny story as well. I actually read his book in college and just became completely impassioned with the process of brand building and the concept of building something larger than a product, building an idea, building a concept, building a type of lifestyle that people could kind of get behind. And Scott was really what I considered the guru of how to do that. So working for Scott, I had the opportunity to build brands from the ground up and think about these kind of bigger picture problems. And in that process, one of my first clients that I was working with was Airbnb. So I was embedded there for the firm with Joe, Brian, Nate in the early days, working on everything from brand values to understanding, what does a community-driven brand really look like, and how do we want to create a sense of belonging and a sense of taking something that is right at the time, in 2012, a product that a lot of people think is kind of strange, right? Sleeping in a stranger's bed is maybe one of the scariest things you could do if you don't think that it's a everyday kind of activity, which at the time it wasn't, to being a globally loved brand, something that people are opening their homes, right? They're visiting other people in other parts of the world. That can be really scary. So I was working on all of that kind of foundational big brand questions for over a year. And then the founders asked me to jump ship and come over and work for them at Airbnb, which I was very lucky to get the blessing of Scott in that process. And, he was very supportive and just said, I built Nike, I built Starbucks. I know the desire to go build something, and I fully support it. Which was amazing, because I think having those type of mentors along the path is so pivotal to success.
And I think you were, 25, 26 at the time. How old were you when this was all going on?
So 23.
23.
Yeah,
so most people
early.
that are listening, most people who are listening are thinking, wow, it's really remarkable. And so when you looked at kind of the landscape in the patina of the work that you had already achieved at such a young age, and then you started to think about having your own business, walk us through a little bit what was going on in your head, because most people who are listening to this are thinking, wow, why wouldn't you stay at Airbnb, or why wouldn't you stay in the corporate world? What made you want to leave and start your own business?
Yeah, I always wanted my own business. I have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, so I always knew that would be something that I would do. There was actually a few times I tried and failed at starting something, which I feel like it's just a rite of passage for most entrepreneurs. But when it really hit home was actually when I met my co-founder. It was a really wonderful experience because I had just moved to New York after having left Airbnb. I took a little hiatus in Europe and moved to New York. And when I met my co-founder there, she and I had such a aligned vision on what we felt like was missing. So again, going back to this idea of what is the missing piece, what is that white space, or what is that problem that needs to be solved that maybe only you can solve in this case. And for us, we felt that brands really lacked soul. So and we're fast forwarding a few years here. This is after Airbnb was rebranded and scaled to a global brand, but in 2017, Trump had just gotten elected. There were a lot of companies appropriating Black Lives Matter. I don't know, the horrendous Pepsi commercial comes to mind. A lot of brands were kind of starting to toe dip in this world of what does it look like to participate in culture, and a lot of them were really getting it wrong. And a lot of that was because they didn't really have values in the first place. They were just trying to create a stunt. And so, being very mission-driven minded people, we immediately knew that this was something that we needed to do. We needed to help more brands at a faster pace really discover what it was that they were creating that could help shift culture, shift this narrative, and build something much bigger.
And did you find in some cases that, having a company kind of discover their values or their heart was difficult?
For some, I think it comes faster for some than others. There are certainly some people who we experience in our business that are immediately mission driven and kind of have a clear vision for who they are and what they do. There are others who take a little bit of help getting there. I think sometimes people are afraid to step into their power and to step into that vision of what they're creating could actually become, because ultimately it takes admitting to yourself that what you're creating does have an impact on the larger society, the larger culture. And I think people who are maybe a little bit more humble or not ready to step into that place take a little bit longer of a time getting there. I'm thinking of one brand that we worked with specifically where all of the founders are just complete visionaries and such incredible people, but and I assumed that their vision would just be so grand. And when we finally got into, our mission vision workshop, it really fell flat and I was shocked. And in that experience, I realized it's more of just owning it and being able to have people around you that help you to codify that vision and to step into it more than anything else.
And also, I would imagine to feel comfortable giving yourself permission to be bold.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's honestly what the secret thing that life's about is just giving each other permission. So much of what we do is confirming with entrepreneurs, no, you're not crazy. This is actually a great idea. Let's go for it. And certainly I found that even between my co-founder and myself, a lot of our success can be contributed to the incredible community around us that we've built. Similar to like We Global and all these incredible communities where at the heart of it, you need people that see a bigger vision. You need people that think in a bigger way that can really help support you in stepping into a bigger vision rather than, I call it yuck your yum, right? The people who maybe aren't along for the ride or aren't going to really want you to step into your big self.
Right. And also, I think that there's a lot of shame involved with failure. And there's a lot of shame involved with claiming a big vision, because then you feel like, oh, God, now I have to deliver it. And what if I don't? But at the same time, I would say, and let me know if you disagree, that you're never really going to achieve greatness if you set the bar too low.
Absolutely. And you're also probably never going to achieve greatness if you create a vision that you alone can achieve, or that, in the next 5 years you can achieve it. And most entrepreneurs, that's a little bit of what's driving them, is that insatiable hunger and curiosity for the new and to create. So if you create something bigger than yourself, you're always going to be driven towards it.